Shaq is officially done keeping quiet. For 5 long years, he's watched the world disrespect his brother. He sees the greatest of all-time debates go straight from Michael Jordan to LeBron James. It is like they completely forgot Kobe Bryant even existed. But now, Paul Pierce just took things way too far. He just crossed a massive line in that classic Lakers and Celtics rivalry.
Kobe was never just like the face of the league. Like, it was Jordan.
Yeah.
Then, like, because think about it, Kobe was young.
Yeah, for sure.
He was young when Mike retired.
Well, you
he
could
was
probably,
only
I guess you could say it was Shaq.
and then you could probably say like Shaq or something like that.
'Cause
Or
Shaq,
like even
even to this
Iverson
day-
for a
Even if it was just for a year or two.
year or two.
Yes.
Pierce said it right on the record on a podcast. 5 years after Kobe passed away in that awful helicopter crash. He claimed that Kobe was never the true face of the NBA. Well, the guy who shared a locker room with Kobe for 8 long years? The man who won 3 rings right beside him? The friend who stood at his memorial and called him Heaven's MVP? Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal heard every single word.
It was that. I just get frustrated when people talk about the GOATs of the game and his name is not mentioned. That's all. Just mention all that. So it's just like they just surpassed him up and went from Mike to LeBron and they left him out.
Frustrated. That is the exact word Shaq used. And honestly, it should terrify Paul Pierce. Because before this video is over, you are going to hear Shaq completely shut down the case Pierce just opened. You are going to hear Jason Tatum call Pierce a coward right to his face. And you will hear a crazy story from the only man on earth who saw every single game Kobe ever played. He reveals exactly what Kobe whispered the night his Achilles snapped in half. It was not about his career. It was not about the pain. It was about Paul Pierce. Listen, Shaq is not just some random guy talking here. He has 4 NBA rings. 3 of them were won right alongside Kobe. 8 years sharing the same locker room, the same practices, and the same final spotlight. He is a 15-time All-Star, a league MVP, the most dominant center in NBA history. He saw Kobe up close every single day during the absolute peak of their careers. They fought, they argued, and they won together. And when we lost Kobe in 2020, Shaq stood up at his memorial and called him Heaven's MVP. So when Shaq talks about Kobe's legacy, it is not just an opinion. It is a verdict. And the guy bringing the proof is even closer to the action. Gary Vitti. He was the head athletic trainer for the Lakers for 32 years. He was there for every championship from Magic Johnson all the way to Kobe. He is literally the only person on earth who can say he watched every single game Kobe Bryant ever played. When Gary Vitti tells you what Kobe said on the worst night of his career, you pay attention. Here is what nobody wants to admit. Kobe did not just play in his era. He defined it. He did not share the throne. He took it for himself, from winning gold with the Redeem Team in 2008, all the way to his 5th ring in 2010. Kobe was the absolute face of the NBA. His jersey was the #1 seller in the world. The Mamba mentality became real life for so many people. The guys who actually played against him know this. The guys who lost to him know it too. But Paul Pierce wants you to forget all of that. Picture this. April 12, 2013. Staples Center. Lakers versus Warriors. Kobe drives to the left. And suddenly, his Achilles tendon snaps. He is 34 years old. His career is basically over right then and there. He does not know it yet. But he is about to send a very clear message to one man. Vitti tells a story like it just happened yesterday. Kobe just tore his Achilles. He is standing on one leg, and he refuses to sit down. He walks right up to the free throw line. He shoots both free throws on a totally blown Achilles. Then Vitti walks onto the court to finally take him back to the locker room.
And so I say to him, I can get you a chair. And he looks down at me and he says, fuck Paul Pierce. That's for you. Okay. Because you remember in 2008,
He had the boo-boo.
okay, he got the boo-boo and he took him off on a wheelchair.
And he came back.
And then he came back and kicked
Yeah.
our ass.
Uh-huh.
All right. Okay. Think of the mentality.
Sicko.
Okay?
Sicko.
You just rupture your Achilles and you're sending a message to fuck Paul.
Think about that for a second. The very first thing on Kobe's mind as his career was ending? Paul Pierce, 5 years earlier. Let's go back to Game 1 of the 2008 NBA Finals. Pierce goes down, holding his knee. The trainers actually bring out a wheelchair and roll him off the court. Everyone thought his series was over. But less than 2 minutes later, he comes jogging right back. He hits back-to-back threes in just 22 seconds to take the lead. The Celtics won that game. They won the series. They beat Kobe. And Kobe never forgot it. So, 5 years later, when his own leg actually snaps, he points at the wheelchair and says no. He walks off on his own 2 feet. He did that to send a loud message to a man who was not even in the building. That is the exact mindset Paul Pierce just disrespected. That is the guy Pierce claims was never the face of the league. Let's be real. Paul Pierce played in Kobe's world. He lost to Kobe in an epic Game 7 during the 2010 Finals. Kobe walked away with his 5th ring. Pierce went home with nothing. And now, 15 years after losing that series, with Kobe gone and unable to defend himself, Pierce sits on a podcast and acts like the Black Mamba was just another player. Even Jason Tatum saw right through it. The biggest star on the Celtics right now. A guy who grew up idolizing Kobe. And Tatum called it exactly what it is.
Yeah, I think it's like cowardly, to be honest, like, because they didn't speak about him like this when he...
Cowardly. That is coming from a current All-NBA star. A guy wearing Celtics green. He is calling out the biggest Celtics legend of his era. And he is calling him a straight-up coward.
But now that Kobe isn't here, we want to bring up the times where he wasn't as efficient or he shot long twos. Now that he's not here, you want to try to erase history.
Erase history. That is exactly what Paul Pierce is trying to do. But you cannot just wipe away the facts. Not when Kobe's brother is still here. Not when the guys who lost to him night after night are still speaking up. Shaq won 3 of his 4 rings right next to Kobe. They spent 8 whole years together. Shaq saw the things Pierce could never see. Why? Because Pierce was usually sitting on the other bench, losing. Shaq loves telling the story of what made Kobe so different. Think about Kobe's very last game. 20 years in the league, playing on a scarred Achilles. Shaq is on live TV and challenges him to score 50. So what does Kobe do? He goes out and drops 60. Paul Pierce never had a goodbye game like that. Paul Pierce definitely never had Shaq begging him for 50 points on national television. The guys who actually had to step on the court and try to stop Kobe, they all tell a very different version of this story.
Talk about Kobe and his competitiveness. It didn't matter how big or how small you were. He was gonna try to destroy you.
Yes.
And that's what separated him from everyone. He was an assassin.
Every time he played me and I posted him up and I got it, he would always come over to me and sneak it in my ear. OG, man, why you keep killing me on these post-ups, man? You gotta teach me that. We used to stay after practice in LA, and I used to teach him the post-up game. Then he used to fake.
An absolute assassin. Nobody who actually had to guard Kobe talks about him the way Paul Pierce does. The guys who lost to him night after night, they still sound traumatized. The players who faced him in the finals call him an assassin. The guy who shared his locker room calls him an exact copy of Michael Jordan. It is only Paul Pierce, sitting in a studio 15 years after his last real game, trying to pretend Kobe was something less. And those Hall of Famers Kobe watched when he was just a teenager, he completely stole their entire game.
I just get frustrated when people talk about the GOATs of the game and his name is not mentioned. Like I don't care who you pick, whether it's Michael, LeBron, or Kobe, but just mention all the names. Yeah. That's all, just mention all the names. So it's just like they just surpassed him up and went from Mike to LeBron and they left him out. So I would like to hear all the recipients and then let the people pick. You know, he's a carbon copy of Mike. Mike's the greatest, so it has to be him.
A Hall of Fame legend literally taught Kobe his own signature moves. Kobe took those moves He mastered them, and then he used them to beat that exact same legend. Does that sound like a guy who was never the face of a league? No. That is a man who built himself into a basketball god while everyone else was sleeping. While Paul Pierce was sleeping. Just think about that crazy three-peat. From 2000 to 2002, the Lakers won 3 straight rings. They went 15 and won in the 2001 playoffs. They never lost a single final series during that whole run. And where was Paul Pierce? Watching all of it happen from his couch in Boston. You heard Shaq say he was frustrated at the start of this video. Well, that was just the warm-up. Because when Shaq sat down on that podcast, he did not stop at being frustrated. He dropped the absolute closing argument.
I would say this, that Kobe is a carbon copy of Mike. So if Mike is the guy, how is Kobe not right there?
An exact copy of Michael Jordan that is coming straight from the guy who shared a locker room with him for 8 long years. The man who watched him grow from an 18-year-old kid all the way into the legend who finished exactly what Jordan started.
That's the greatest question ever.
So, let's be real for a second. If Michael Jordan is the ultimate standard, how in the world is Kobe not standing right there next to him?
Is on the line.
My favorite Kobe moment is in the finals in Indiana. I file out, and you put your hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't worry, big fella, I got it."
If Mike is the greatest of all time, and he absolutely is, then Kobe is standing right beside him. Paul Pierce is not, and he never was. Here is what Paul Pierce will never ever have. He will never have what Shaq and Kobe built together. He will never have that legendary moment Shaq has been talking about for 25 years. Picture it. The 2000 NBA Finals. Game 4 against the Pacers. It goes into overtime, and Shaq fouls out of the game. The Lakers are in deep trouble. The entire dynasty is on the line.
Remember what you told me one day in the forum when I first met you? You said you were going to be the finish it for me.
With the greatest player of all time?
And then you actually said, I'm going to be the Will Smith of the NBA.
Don't worry, big fella. I got it. That was a 21-year-old kid telling Shaquille O'Neal to relax. Right in the middle of overtime in the finals. And then he went right out there and took over the game. Look, Paul Pierce never won a single ring without Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen by his side. But Kobe? He won 2 more rings without Shaq. He went back-to-back in 2009 and 2010 with Pau Gasol. He proved to the whole world that he could lead a championship team all by himself. And the crazy part? Shaq saw it coming before anyone else did.
Another thing you told me as an 18-year-old, I'm going to be better than Mike.
The Will Smith of the NBA. That's what an 18-year-old Kobe Bryant told Shaq in the Forum hallway.
And I was just watching the night before when LeBron passed him up. I was like, y'all bullshit. It's a hoax. Stop it. And Shawnee called me crying. And I said, hold on, let me verify it. And I called my guy from the sheriff office. He said it was true. I started crying.
The night before he died.
Just 18 years old. And he looks the most dominant force in basketball right in the eye and tells him he is going to surpass Michael Jordan. He spent the rest of his life turning that crazy promise into reality. Sure, Paul Pierce was 18 once too, but he never told a single soul he was going to be better than Mike. Why? Because he knew he wasn't. But here is the heartbreaking part that nobody really wants to talk about. Kobe never got the chance to defend his own legacy. Not against Paul Pierce. Not against anyone. January 26th, 2020. That awful helicopter crash in Calabasas. We lost Kobe. We lost his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, and 7 other beautiful souls. And Shaq? He had to hear the absolute worst news of his life straight from his own son.
And I'm like, damn it, I didn't even holler at him. Last time, we did the sit-down everybody was waiting for. That's the last time I hollered. Like, I didn't get the number. I didn't text him. I didn't holler him. And that still haunts me. All the shit we went through, we could have shook hands and put that aside. Because people think it was worse than it was. It's just 2 brothers going at it. 2 guys with, difference of opinion.
The very night before he passed away, LeBron James actually passed Kobe on the all-time scoring list. Kobe went right on Twitter to congratulate him. He showed nothing but love. Just a few hours later, he was gone. And ever since that heartbreaking night, Shaq has been carrying a weight heavier than anyone else can even imagine.
The only thing I regret is I could have hollered. Don't take you no time to be like, hey man, what's happening? Like a text or something. I never did it. He never did it. And that's what hurt me the most.
Two brothers. That is exactly how Shaq describes their bond. Just two brothers. They were never real enemies. And they were never just rivals. Brothers. A simple text message. Shaq would trade all his championship rings just for that. Just one text to Kobe before that helicopter went down. And this is the man Paul Pierce is dragging through the mud right now. A man who cannot text back. A guy who cannot sit on a podcast and defend himself. Who cannot walk into that studio and look Pierce in the eye. A father whose teenage daughter passed away right next to him. Yet Pierce goes on the air and claims Kobe was never the face of the league. That is exactly why Jason Tatum called it cowardly. That is exactly what Shaq meant when he told Pierce to watch his mouth. Kobe Bryant was not just a great basketball player. He was a guy who looked at Shaq at 18 years old and said he was going to be better than Michael Jordan. And then, he spent his entire life proving it. He was the assassin that kept opponents awake at night. He was the kid who learned and stole every great move from the Hall of Famers before him. He was the brother who told Shaq, "Don't worry, I got it," and then actually went out and won the game. He was the man who snapped his own Achilles and used his last moments on the court to send a loud and clear message to Paul Pierce. Make no mistake, he was the absolute face of the NBA from 2000 to 2010. And now, 5 years after we lost him, Paul Pierce thinks he can just erase all of that. Well, he cannot. Shaq will not let him. Tatum will not let him. And his fans? The ones who watched him play every single night? The kids who copied his footwork in the driveway and yelled Kobe while throwing paper into the trash? We definitely will not let him. Kobe does not even need defending. But Paul Pierce really needs to watch his mouth. If you think Pierce owes Kobe a massive apology, hit that like button right now. If you disagree and you actually think Pierce made a valid point, drop a comment down below and explain yourself. Because the rest of us really want to hear it. And if you are sick and tired of the disrespect toward the 90s and 2000s era, make sure to subscribe. We are not done defending it.